Okay, I want to do my E3 reactions so far. Now it is Wednesday, June 14th, about 10:30 p.m. And I think I've seen most everything I need to see. I watched, I don't know, I'm getting old. I used to just live for E3, and now it's like I care less and less. I didn't even watch Microsoft's conference. I was busy with some other commitments, and I didn't even watch Microsoft's conference this year. I watched what I wanted to. I just caught up on different YouTube videos and NeoGAF new, threads about what happened, and I may watch the Xbox conference, but I think I watched a little at the beginning, so I kind of know how it went. And I watched Sony's conference. I was like so freaking tired. By the way, I'm really tired as I make this video, but I'm going to do it anyway. Power through. I watched Sony's conference. I was even tireder than I am now. I literally could barely keep my eyes open. I literally was in my bed trying to kind of keep one eye open. I watched my computer monitor on my computer desk across the room while I half dozed in between. And what did I get out of it? Well, not much. Microsoft won E3 as usual. Sony is pretty unimpressive. Nintendo I didn't even bother to watch, although I am kind of a closet Nintendo fan again in a weird way. Now I wouldn't call myself a fan, but the past years I think rightfully so, like a lot of hardcore gamers, I've been bashing the hell out of Nintendo. And now all of a sudden I look at them and I'm like, hey, they're doing some cool stuff. I think one of the first things they did was that really got them back on track was the Nintendo Mini Classic or whatever the hell it was called. That sold out instantly and kind of set the tone that, hey, people still love Nintendo, They didn't make enough and that pissed me off, but I eagerly await the Super Nintendo Mini. I hope they actually make enough this time because I really want one. Even though I got a RetroPie in the meantime, that's another story. And another thing that really opened my eyes on Nintendo was I bought a Switch. Now, it's not for what you think. I didn't play it. I bought it to flip it, and it didn't go for that much. I think I ended up clearing about $50. Amazon screwed me kinda. The thing about flipping is, generally, not with something like the Nintendo Mini, but generally you want to get something on a release day to flip it for max profit, because generally, I've been flipping on and off, mostly video game related stuff, for pretty much my whole life. I remember when the PS3 came out, I sold one for like $1,200. It came out for what, $600, and within like literally 3-4 days, it was back to like MSRP on eBay. I felt sorry for the buyer. He didn't seem to mind though. I'm guessing he was a rich guy, because I remember there was some sort of snafu with shipping, and I contacted him, like, hey, it's going to be a day late or whatever, and he was like, okay, man, no problem. He just seemed real nonplussed, and I thought, dude, this dude must just be rich, and, $1,200 ain't nothing to him. But at any rate, that's all aside. The point is, I bought a Switch to flip, and only made I think I sold it for $380, and after tax and everything, I ended up paying like $325, so I ended up clearing $55 profit. Big deal. But I sold it to some guy locally through one of these apps, and Let's Go or OfferUp. Nice older gentleman with money, obviously. Said he was going on a trip, wanted to buy one for his kids, couldn't find one. And when he was in the parking lot and everything, and I was giving it to him and whatnot, it was funny because I told him I felt like it was a drug deal, but he opened it up, take a look at it, and man, it was cool. It was just cool. You could just, like when you open up something from Apple, or much as I hate Apple, or just any kind of high-end electronics, you open it up and you're like, wow, that's neat. Just in and of itself, the Switch instantly struck me that way. It was like, wow, that's cool. Just watching this guy open it up, make sure everything was in there and stuff when he bought it from me. The thing's just neat. I got to give Nintendo credit for that. It's something you want. If I had a lot of disposable income, more than I have, I'd probably have one for the hell of it. It's just cool. You know, I don't know how long lasting it's going to be. I did predict before the Switch came out, I did think that it was going to do better than the Wii U. I figured, you know, it's probably going to sell double what the Wii U did. I mean, that was before it came out, which still wouldn't make it very successful, but, you know, I really feel like the gimmick they're going with this time is more universal. And now that it's come out, it seems to be even more universal and more successful than I thought. So, point is, I feel like Nintendo is kind of actually making some good decisions, and you know, and they're doing well. And you know, they're still not necessarily for me though. But I would like a Switch. You know, as I said, if money was no object, I don't think I'd pay $2.99 for one. But they are neat. I gotta say that. Screen's high quality, which is a plus to Nintendo. But anyways, to say all that, I didn't even watch the Nintendo trailer at all, or press conference, or whatever the hell they did. I just don't care. They have like maybe one game I mildly care about, which is Mario Odyssey, which I need to watch a trailer for, because I literally have not. I'm pretty sure they showed something on that on E3. Other than that, I didn't watch anything from Nintendo. Did not care. So, given everything, what stood out to me about E3? Well, Microsoft won, as they usually do. Mainly, their conference wasn't that great. Like I said, I've been kind of jaded. In the PS3 360 years, I think I was really more into E3. And to me, you know, that was where we hit, I think, a graphical wall. Up to the PS3 and 360, graphics just kept getting vastly better with every hardware generation. With PS3 and 360, it kind of reached a crescendo to me. They blew my mind. I remember probably some of the most seminal, like, impressed I've ever been in all my years of gaming was like when Gears of War came out on the Xbox 360. Like, holy smokes! And then I'm an anti-PlayStation guy, but whenever Killzone came out in like 2008 and PS3, I gotta admit it blew my freaking mind, you know. And I think a few years later, Halo 4 was just as graphically impressive as Killzone, but at the time, Killzone was like, wow. You know, I gotta hand it to Sony on that one. But just to the point that now, I don't know, I'm sort of jaded, and this new gen, yeah, the graphics are a lot better, but it's just hard, like nothing blows my mind very much graphically anymore. So, I'm just a little bit jaded. Point here is I'm a little jaded about E3 in general, and that went for the stuff I've seen. Nothing's too much blowing me away. There's some good stuff though, just not blowing me away. Either Microsoft or Sony. Definitely not Sony. Blew me away. Xbox won the conference pretty easily. They had they showed probably there's 3 games that have really stood out for me. If you don't count Destiny 2, which I kind of don't count because it was revealed before, and I don't know, Destiny's more like a way of life than a game to me. I mean, it sounds terrible to say, but you know, it's almost like I can't judge it against everything else. Just a game, and then there's Destiny. You know, for better or worse. I mean, I got kind of bored of Destiny 1 almost at the end of it, but for better or for worse, Destiny is Destiny to me. It's almost in another category from everything else. You know, these other games I might play for 20 hours, and that's that. Destiny, you know, I put by my estimate probably somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 hours into Destiny 1. I mean, just by these websites, time wasted on Destiny.com, I think it had me at 1,910 hours, and it doesn't count time in orbit and the tower, which is real gameplay a lot of the times. I mean, in orbit, you're usually like, you could be either looking at your menus, you could be going, you know, just clicking through to the next activity. That's all gameplay, though. And when you're in the tower, you know, you're running around getting bounties, buying vendor gear, whatever you may be doing, buying supplies. It's gameplay. Now, not all of it. Now, there are a lot of times where I would idle in the tower or orbit, so that's why So I don't know what percentage of my tower and orbit time was gameplay, you know, probably 30%. But I don't know. The point is, it was 1,900 hours just in the activities, like strikes, crucible, raids. So if you throw in you know, another couple of hundreds of hours, some unknown hundreds of hours in tower and orbit of active gameplay. You know, I figure I'm at least 2,500 hours in Destiny 1, if not 3,000. But point is, Destiny's kind of in another category for me there. But Destiny 2, at first glance, I was like, man, a lot of these other games have a lot better graphics than Destiny 2. But then somebody showed me, speaking of that, well, I'll get to it soon enough, but I looked at this Destiny 2 4K 60 FPS PC footage or whatever it was, or maybe it was just 60 FPS, I don't remember. And I was like, damn, that looks really, really freaking good. And, all of a sudden I was like, well, it can hold up to those other games graphically. But, so yeah, the standouts for me besides Destiny 2, which as I said, I kind of put in a separate, doesn't really count category, was, Anthem. And, well, we'll say the number one thing and the reason why Xbox won the show, like I said, probably 2 of the 3 games I really was interested in were shown at the Microsoft conference, which was The Last Night, which is kind of an indie game, Blade Runner looking thing, and EA's Anthem, which looked really cool, kind of a Destiny clone, but with better graphics and just different, something different. And so if you're sitting here and at least 2 out of 3, I can't remember which press conference, if any, had Battlefront in it. It might have been Microsoft that had Battlefront 2. If that's the case, then Microsoft went 3 for 3. I don't know where Battlefront was first or mainly shown, and I'm not sure who has the marketing on that. I think Sony may, so it probably wasn't shown at the Microsoft. Point is, 2 of the main 3 games I'm interested in, coming out of E3, 3 games stood head and shoulders above the rest. The Last Night, Anthem, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. And 2 of those were shown at the Microsoft conference. So right there, it's kind of won. And the main reason it won was Xbox One X. And it's hard to beat hardware for reaction, but definitely I'd say as the reaction has settled to E3, one thing is shining above. NeoGAF hates Xbox, so they're going to be fighting about Xbox One X and trying to downplay it all the time, but it's still going to dominate their conversation, And it's still the thing that as the rubble kind of clears and everything, the one thing that's standing up that we're going to remember in the months to come is the Xbox One X, And granted, it's hardware, so it's a different paradigm, but it definitely stood head and shoulders above everything else at E3. And what are my thoughts on, in general, the Sony conference? Just to touch on it real quick. Oh gosh, it was so bad. If you were watching it live, everything just felt so flat and dead. The journalists, the Sony fanboys make all these games up to be so incredible, and it's like, and then they would show one and they would cut to the crowd and it was like just complete death silence. It was really bad. If I was Sony, I gotta say I would pack some fanboys in there next time like Microsoft did, get some hype, because it just felt so dead, and that kind of impacted the way their conference stream came across. It was just like they'd show Days Gone or something, and the way these Sony shills on NeoGAF and on the podcasts and stuff talk up those games, you're supposed to be going ape shit berserk of how amazing it looks, and they'd show Days Gone, they'd cut to the crowd, and the crowd was just like, very scattered, lukewarm, almost non-existent applause, So I'm saying, just thematically, Sony, if I was giving them advice, I'd say, hey guys, put some, a bunch of fanboys in the front row next time, to make things just stylistically look better, because everything they showed just looked like it went over just dead as hell to a room full of jaded journalists, And we're talking about the actual Sony games. Days Gone, oh god, that looks so boring, Fucking more zombies, really, Gosh, I'm so sick of them. And, it looks just like The Last of Us, cross Uncharted, cross every other shitty Sony exclusive that I don't care about. And I'm bored to death. And the graphics on Days Gone were really bad as well, Ugh. The main character, he looks like he has helmet hair or something. I wouldn't even put it to say it looks as good as Uncharted 4. And Uncharted 4 is not that, not any crazy looker. It was, pretty good when it came out. But a couple years later here, something like Battlefront, Anthem, all those games look way better than Uncharted 4 does. Days Gone, just, man, like I said, looks rough, doesn't look good graphically. uh, you know, it looks just like so Sony, overhyped garbage that I just get so sick of hearing about all the time on these Sony bias podcasts and shit. And I really don't give a shit about these boring games and their boring, shitty, wanna be a TV show stories, and how great they are shoved down my throat every second. Ugh. Just makes me just want to vomit. I'm not interested in this boring, cliched. God, the cliches. Oh, it's another fucking zombie game that's gonna make you feel so much with its amazing story. Oh, throw up in my mouth. I'm bored to death just hearing about it already. Anyway, so that's just my thoughts on why I think Microsoft won E3. Because they had the hardware, which granted was kind of an unfair comparison. They're the only one coming out with hardware this year. But fair or not, it's the thing that's sticking out. And they had, like I said, 2 of the 3 games I came out of E3 liking the most. The Last Night and Anthem showed at their conference. Granted, Anthem's going to be on all platforms. But so let's get to the Microsoft conference and my thoughts on stuff, and I'll start playing some trailers here. Like, we'll start with the Xbox One X. Maybe play this little trailer here, which I didn't see, was only 2 minutes. What do I think of Xbox One X? I think it looks awesome. The console really looks good. I'm not the biggest fan of the Xbox One X form factor, or the Xbox One form factor, I guess, which is basically the Xbox S is just the Xbox One smaller, in my opinion. I'm not just the biggest fan of it. I think it gets the job done. It's fine. It's modern looking. But, I always went back to this, like, when people used to go ape shit over the stupid ass Wii, and they were like, oh my god, it's the best looking console ever. I'd be like, it's a fucking rectangle. Basically, I think it was a little slanted or something. I'd be like, it's a fucking rectangle. Who gives a fuck? Who thinks a rectangle looks so amazing? Because these people just go ape shit over how the Wii looked. And I'd be like, why don't you just go buy a $20 PC DVD drive? Because that base, it's a square. It's a square piece of metal and plastic. That's what a $20 PC DVD drive looks like. Do you think that looks like the most incredible thing ever, too? If you think the Wii's so great. So I'll say the same thing about the Xbox One X. It's a rectangle. What's so great about that? It's it's not bad. I don't think it's a bad looking console. I just always wish for more lines, and I miss when consoles looked like the Dreamcast, even the Atari Jaguar, when they had all these lines and they looked sweeping. They had Sega Saturn, maybe Xbox 360 to a large extent. But the Xbox One X, as you see, if we pause it here, I really think it does look really good. It looks high end. For some reason, it's basically the same shape as the Xbox One S. For some reason, it looks better to me. The dimensions, I know it's a little different dimensions, so whatever they did to the dimensions is making it look a little better to me for some reason. It is pretty amazing they got it so small and with the internal power supply. I mean, that is pretty amazing. I mean, I really don't care that much whether my consoles are small or big. But I got to admit, if you'd told me before the Xbox One X came out that Microsoft's going to pull a 6 teraflop console and it's going to be like significantly smaller than the Xbox One S, I'd have been amazed, So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy with it. It's going to be a day one purchase for me. Now, the price is the main thing. It came in a little high at $499. I was thinking it'd be $399 to be honest, and I figured $449 was another good chance. I figured it'll be either $399 if we're lucky, or $449 if we're not. And either way, I figured Microsoft wins. Well, it came in $499. It came in $100 higher than I think the best estimates. Now, is that a little bit of a downer? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's anything that's really going to permanently affect anything. It's still the most powerful console, and that's still what really matters to hardcore gaming. I don't care what anybody says. It's the reason why PS4 outsold Xbox One so bad. It really is. People don't want to admit it. They're going to make up every other reason, but it is the reason. And you go back to the previous generation, Xbox 360 sold toe-to-toe with the PS3, even though coming off the prior gen, the PS2 had outsold the Xbox One like 6-1. And you go from that to Xbox 360 tying the PS3 in sales. Why? Because the Xbox 360 was, there were many factors. It came out earlier. It was cheaper initially, all those, but it also had the power to stand up to the PS3. And generally, if you asked me, you stuck a gun in my head and said, given everything, which console was more powerful last gen, the Xbox 360 or the PS3? I'd say the Xbox 360 was. Now you can debate it all day long, and you can pull out your the Sony exclusives look better. I don't agree, but I do agree that the Sony developers, especially early, pushed the PS3 hardware harder. But I think by the time of Halo 4, I think you put Halo 4 up against any PS3 exclusive, whether it be Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, or Killzone 2 or 3, Halo 4 looks as good as any of those, period. So, I mean, I think early in the lives, like I said, PS3 developers tended to push the exclusive hardware because so much of Sony fanboys, sense of worth, to be honest, is wrapped up in feeling like they have the most powerful console. I mean, that may be a terrible thing to say, but it's true. Okay, I'm back. What was I talking about here? Yeah, Sony developers early in the PS3's life were more aggressive about pushing it because, like I said, so much of Sony fanboys' sense of self-worth is wrapped up in, oh my god, look at those visuals, Xbox can't compete. How many times have you heard that over the years from Uncharted? It's their self-worth is wrapped up in that, and their developers know it, so they push. They have to push that. When Microsoft developers, unfortunately, I guess, just didn't push the visuals as much. The Microsoft first party. Point of all this long-winded rant is at the end of the day, and you have to consider that pretty much every single multi-platform ran better on Xbox 360. I mean, a solid 95% of them. The PS4, the multi-platform ran better on PS4 so far this gen. Versus the basic S, they're not going to run better than they do on Scorpio, of course. But in last gen it was the reverse, and the gen prior was the reverse. That's what's funny to me is like. Most of these consoles' lives, the Xbox has been more powerful since 2001 to 2013. Xbox crushed PS2 in power, and Xbox 360 arguably was more powerful than PS3. Some people would call it a tie, or some people would claim PS3 was more powerful, but I think they're kidding themselves. It wasn't. There's plenty of developers that or a few anyway, that even came out and flat said that the Xbox 360 was the more powerful machine. And just look at the multiplats. There's your proof. Right up to the end of the generation, 90% of multiplats always ran better on the Xbox 360. Anyways, point of all that being, where was I at? Oh yeah, Xbox One is the most powerful system. So Sony's in trouble now, and they know it. Their fans were so mad when the PS4 Pro didn't get its upgrade, and it came out at just 4.2 teraflops and all that. So yeah, Xbox One X, star of the show, $100 extra versus the PS4 Pro. Not ideal, but I honestly don't think it's going to hurt it. I think it's going to hurt it very little at all, honestly. At the end of the day, or it'll hurt it, but I shouldn't say very little, but I don't think it's going to have just a huge effect. So, that's my feelings on that. So yeah. Xbox One X was a positive. The price is a little high, but and the thing is, you can always cut the price later. That's the thing. You can't fix the hardware. That was the thing with the Xbox One S or Xbox One originally. It came out with kind of deficient hardware, and they were fucked. It's not like you can add later. They did add, I think, a little GPU power to the Xbox One S, but nothing substantial. They were just screwed now. Whoops. Now we got this box out. It's not powerful enough. Too bad for us, Whereas if they'd have shot too high on the hardware, you can always go work your way down to a lower price later. It's the same thing with the Xbox One X. They can cost reduce it. They can come out with a Xbox One S cheapo in a year or whatever they need to do. But they can the price they can work with, the power you can't. So this thing's got Mondo power, and that's what matters. And at the end of the day, that's why it's a big hit and a big success, even at $499. I feel like there's one quibble I have with it, though. One major quibble. I noticed, I didn't even notice it first, but it has a 1 terabyte hard drive. Now that may have been for performance reasons, because I saw that they were talking a lot about how they on the teardown of it, the Microsoft guys were talking about how they dampened the vibration on the hard drive because it actually increases performance. And this is a machine built around performance and all that business. So the hard drive, they put these little like vibration dampers on it, and that apparently makes it where it can actually load faster. The hard drive actually is faster because it's not vibrating. When it's vibrating, it's slower. So the point was they went for more performance there, and they're stressing that, or they mentioned it a few times in some of their teardowns and stuff, the Microsoft engineers. So maybe the 1 terabyte was limiting for speed reasons. They needed that drive to be as fast as possible. And I know that given everything equal, well, it depends on how many platters there are. I know that a larger platter is faster, so I guess I don't really know the details, but it's possible that a 1 terabyte hard drive is faster than bigger ones. Maybe it's a stretch, but if I don't know how many. The reason I can't say for sure is because I don't know how many I don't know if like each platter on a 3 terabyte hard drive is 1 terabyte, so it's got to use 3 platters. So in that case, it would be slower. Now, if it's 3 terabytes that can fit on 1 platter, then that would be faster because the data is packed in denser on the same platter. Platter is just basically the number of kind of disks in a hard drive. So basically, I'm not sure. They could have been limited to 1 terabyte for performance reasons, but they haven't said that. So long story short, I'm like, what a stupid. Why didn't this thing? I know that like 3 terabyte drives are pretty reachable on, I believe, desktops, if not laptops. So like, why? For this amount of money and everything, they should have. Huge misstep. Why not give it a 3-4 terabyte hard drive? And that would have made it feel just so much more. Or at least 3 terabytes, something they could have done without increasing the actual cost much. Because when it comes to hard drive, there's really very little difference in price. They just use it as an artificial way to segment the market, same as Apple does with their iPhones. They charge $100 or $200 more for the 64 gigabyte iPhone versus the 32 gigabyte. The real difference in there is probably $2. It's just an easy way for them to segment the market. Same as NVIDIA does with video cards, and Microsoft does with consoles, and Sony. They make their 500 gigabyte version of the console, the cheap one, and the 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte, the expensive one. But the actual difference between a 1 terabyte hard drive and a 500 gigabyte hard drive cost is probably like 50 cents. I mean, literally. It's just an artificial way for them to market segment things. So they should have done like a 2-3 terabyte hard drive at least, and it would have felt, like wow. Maybe something like 3 terabytes where there was some wow factor there, and it would have just been nice. But they didn't. Misstep, in my opinion. I need to move on because I'd like to keep this video to perhaps 40 minutes or so. Last night, this was one of the coolest games I saw. I think a lot of people agreed at the Microsoft conference. Now, this looks really cool. It looks Blade Runner-esque. Love the art style. The very first time I watched it, I wasn't like amazed, but as the conference has worn on, I've kind of realized, wow, that really looked amazing compared to some of the other stuff being shown. I love this art style, this look. Looks fantastic. Can't wait. One thing is I didn't realize that it doesn't come out until 2018. So many of these Sony games. That's another reason I was going to mention that Sony lost the E3 conference battle big time, was because so many of their games were 2018. I mean, I was watching half asleep, and every game I saw was 2018. Oh, what gives? I think they've got Gran Turismo Sport for 2017. That's it, And they were showing the same games as last year. That was another thing. These dumbass journalists like Jeff Kanata going ape shit over Days Gone. They showed Days Gone last year. It's the same game again, dumb fuck. And then the same thing with God of War as I call it. They showed it last year. You're really going to be gaga over it again? and it's still not coming this year. That's the amazing thing about both those games. They are early 2013 for 18. Anyways, but I am disappointed. Last night I saw that it's a 2018 title. God, that's so far away. I wish it was coming out this fall for sure. One of the most impressive games, though, one of the three that impressed me the most was Battlefront. Look at this multiplayer footage. This is going to look so amazing on Xbox One X. I mean, these to me is the best graphics, and I'm expecting it because Battlefront 1 had amazing graphics too. Albeit they were a little blurry on Xbox One because it was only 720p. But the other big selling point of this game for me is as a campaign. I love Destiny multiplayer, but it's the only multiplayer I really put time in. And I don't care about multiplayer generally, like in a game like Battlefront 1. I just didn't care, so that made it a non-starter for me. This game has a campaign, and now another thing is, in the campaign, that's where these amazing visuals are going to be at their best. It's kind of weird. Like going into E3, I wasn't thinking that much about Battlefront 2, but as I get, I just thought about it a little bit and like, wow, I really want this. The fact that it's a campaign makes it viable purchase to me, whereas Battlefront 1 wasn't because it didn't have a campaign. Then you layer on top, these graphics are fantastic, and you're going to get the best graphics in campaign. This is going to look amazing. This is going to be an amazing showcase for my new Xbox One X I'm going to be purchasing, and a 4K TV that I'm more than likely going to be purchasing around the same time. I'm going to fire this bad boy up, crank the old sound bar / subwoofer up, and kind of blow my mind with the graphics here. And on a this is multiplayer footage, but on a campaign, they're going to be able to do so much fun stuff with lightsabers and TIE fighter fights, and I'm excited. I don't even want to spoil the campaign too much for me, but if they do it right, it should be just amazing, and I predict it may sell huge. So yes, it's one of my best of E3 for sure. These graphics are incredible. One of the few games that kind of has at least some wow factor for me anymore, and graphically looks way better than Days Gone, that's for sure. And moving on, what else did we have? Last night, Battlefront, Anthem. This was the third of the trio that looked good to me besides last night in Battlefront 2, or that stood out to me. This game, I'm sure everybody's seen it by now, but it looks amazing. Graphics are nice. I wouldn't put it up as good as Battlefront 2 graphically, but it looks great. Excited. It's a late 2018 game is the only problem. Another thing I worry about is I don't know how many developers BioWare has. One of the things about Destiny, now having a ton of developers doesn't make a game good, obviously, but Destiny has something like 500 plus developers working on it, I don't know how big BioWare is, but I'm guessing it's more like 200-ish, 100 to 200. That's not on the same scale. So are they going to be able to deliver the kind of depth and constant updates and stuff that 500 developers can deliver on Destiny and Destiny 2, or is it going to be kind of shallow because they just don't have enough developers to, I haven't heard anybody else voice that concern about this game, but it's just something that comes to my mind quickly enough. One thing that's always kind of in my mind about Destiny is there's so many people working on that game, and that kind of, it doesn't always, but compared to like Grand Theft Auto, it's got like 1,000 developers, and that's always one of the highest quality games, right? Highest production values, let's say. So it's not a direct correlation in quality, obviously, but more developers always helps. And I'm just saying BioWare versus Bungie, that's probably, I don't know how many developers are working on this, but I'm guessing, like I said, it's somewhere around 100 to 200, 150 to 200 maybe, versus 500 plus on Destiny. So I worry that it might be a little shallow and that they might just be in over their head trying to make a Destiny style game. But it looks cool. The graphics are very, very nice. This moment right here is, you gotta admit, pretty awesome. And I'm ready to try something different besides Destiny 2, part of me is kind of like, oh god, not another Destiny style game. I'm so bored of it. But to me, it's like you could always do certain things better. Most games always do something better than the next game. You can always improve. You can always iterate. You know, like one of the problems with Destiny, I think, is it's kind of hard to play solo because you need a lot of people to raid and all this business. And so I think one of the main areas you could improve on a Destiny type formula is if you could make one that was more easily soloable if you so desired. You know, you can still play it with people, but you know, there's just a lot of areas you can improve on. Destiny graphics is a big one, and this seems to have done that, although Destiny 2 does look great. You know, graphics is one of the obvious ones, and to me it's always one of the most underrated things in games. People like intrinsically care about it but like to pretend they don't. But like what you're looking at in all these games is like, you know, people don't want to admit it, but you know, what grabbed everybody's attention about this game? The graphics, you know. Simple as can be, but yet people just don't want to ever admit it. And, you know. Anyways, so yeah, Anthem was a big one. Battlefront 2, big one. And last night was a big one. Days Gone, let's switch over to that because I'm at the 35-minute mark. You know, look at these poor graphics and, God, every cliche you could ever imagine throwing on the screen together. Oh, he's a biker. Oh, look, he's wearing a heart. You know, let's throw Sons of Anarchy and every other shitty fucking, you know, FX show in with every other cliche. You know, let's go for max cliche. You know, what do they call it? Let's go for max cliche here. You know, a mangy dog on, you know, a bike, shitty graphics. Oh, he's got a double-barreled shotgun, of course, and he's scruffy. You know. I remember people used to get on Microsoft for, the NeoGAF and their anti-Microsoft bias. Used to always bitch about, bald Space Marines, because Gears of War 4 had a bald Space Marine, and that's a big Microsoft game. Well, what about, you know, scruffy zombie hunter guy, you know? Fuck. The same fucking guy in Last of Us and now Days Gone, or Last of Days, or Days of Us, or Last Gone, or, you know, I get these games confused because they're all the same. But I mean, this game, like the amount of cliche factor in this game, just really, it's honestly making me sick to my stomach. And the just lack of colors, the drabness, ugh. So yeah, Days Gone, very, very, very substandard. I'm gonna get this bashed into my brain by the Sony media for the next 50 fucking years, and I'm already about to vomit over it, you know. Ugh. Look at these shitty tree graphics and shitty textures and janky ass animation. Guy walks like a fucking pogo stick. Ugh. The fuck out, Days Gone. Now, there was one game that I did kind of like at the Sony conference. That was Shadow of the Colossus. Granted, it's a remake. This really, I was like, wow, this looks cool. You know, I know this is an old game. I never played it. You know, it was overhyped like every Sony exclusive is. But, you know, when I was watching this trailer and, you know, just half asleep and everything, I was like, wow, you know, that looks neat. So this is the positive out of the Sony conference, in my opinion. Just the sheer scale of these monsters. Now, the graphics still look a little dated on it. I wish they'd have updated them like all the way. To me, it still looks like a up-res of the original. Where I wish they'd have done like a Gears of War Master Chief Collection treatment, where it's an actual, like, they actually redid the graphics rather than just spruced them up. But, you know, the scale of it looks awesome. You know, I got to give them credit on that. Never played it, but, you know, it's not very colorful, and yeah, these suckers are huge. It looks boring, but I won't say that. But yeah, but you know, I just remember when I was watching this trailer, I was like, man, look at the size of these things. It's pretty cool. So that was the high point for Sony, I think. Shadow of the Colossus looked cool. Spider-Man, graphics were poor, environments were bland. Ick, you know, and plus I just can't help but feel like Spider-Man is kind of like this only Sony fanboys like it creation, you know? Like, who cares about Spider-Man anymore? Isn't the world nowadays all about stupid Iron Man and Avengers? And I don't give a fuck about superhero movies anyway, but since when was Spider-Man cool, you know? It's kind of like the people who buy Sony TVs or something, you know, or who use Sony Vega softwares. You know, who does that? Who buys a Sony TV in 2017? Only PlayStation fanboys. You know, you can just spot them a mile away. The people who are just, they're PlayStation fanboys, have to buy Sony brand everything. And, Spider-Man kind of strikes me that way. Like, it's artificially hyped or something, because Sony puts out the movie. So all the PlayStation fanboys, oh, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. But it's like in the real world, people are kind of like, fucking Spider-Man. As far as I know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some kind of hipness, people are jazzed for this remake or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. But to me, it's kind of like, it's like trying to pimp a Superman movie, it's past its time in a way. It's all about Batman, Iron Man. I don't know what the fuck all the Avengers superheroes are now. So, that was my thoughts on the E3 conferences. Xbox One X, the star of the show. The last night, Battlefront 2 and, the heck was that other? Oh, Anthem are the big standouts. Shame Anthem isn't coming for so long, because we're going to see it next E3 But Battlefront 2 is going to be pretty much a sure purchase for me to show off my new Xbox One X and 4K TV this fall. And yeah, I'm buying an Xbox One X sight unseen. The price is not ideal, but I'm honestly a lot more positive about it than you might think. I mean, I really don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. I wouldn't be surprised if the thing sells out, the way the Nintendo consoles have been selling out. I'm going to pre-order it quick, because as soon as they come up, apparently it hasn't even been approved by the FCC yet, so there's no official pre-orders yet, but as soon as it does, I'm grabbing it, because the way things are set out now, and it being close to a holiday where things are going to sell a lot anyway, you may not be able to get one. And yeah, very pleased with the Xbox One X. Was I pleased overall with what Microsoft showed? No. You could always want more. So I would have loved to see some kind of crazy exclusive. There's rumors of a new Ninja Gaiden, for example, or just, something, a new IP would have been, a new IP of a third-person action game, like Samaritan. I'm still craving that old Samaritan UE4 game. Ever since they played that, I've been made that demo, I've been wanting that, a game based on that. The atmosphere is so cool. I'm a Blade Runner atmosphere mark. I love Blade Runner atmosphere. Hence why I'm jazzed for the last night. And hence why I'm still talking about the Samaritan demo 5 years later, or whatever it is. And yeah, I definitely could have used more. I thought all the E3 conferences were a little lackluster, and Microsoft's no exception. But I think it was the best out of what I saw. Definitely better than Sony. God of War, they showed that again. Are they going to show it next year too? Probably. And it looked boring. Oh, stupid, gory guy goes and kills shit. For your low IQ Obama voters. There you go. So yeah, I'm wondering if my recording's going to run out of space here. Sometimes I run out of hard drive space. And then I'm just rambling. This is probably going to be a bitch to upload. At 40 plus minutes here. But yeah, those are my thoughts about E3 2017. I'm just trying to think if I missed anything, because I know as soon as I turn this off, I'm going to be like, I completely forgot to talk about X, Y, and Z. Oh, no, I guess I could talk about no PS4 Pro price cut. And I found that funny that all these idiots on podcasts were talking about, as soon as Microsoft comes out with the Scorpio, Sony's going to slash the PS4 Pro price to $249. Wishful thinking, like, you idiots. Like, really? Like, the PS4 isn't even $249, and you think they're going to cut the Pro to $249? These morons, these Sony fanboy wishful thinking morons. Of course, it didn't happen, and they didn't touch the prices. That was all very predictable. I think that if the Scorpio had come in at $399, then they probably had a Pro price cut to just $349, a small one, lined up. I suspect, that seems reasonable, very reasonable. But once the Xbox X came in at $499, they didn't need it, so they didn't unveil it. But yeah, so it's going to be PS4 $299, PS4 Pro $399 for the foreseeable future. So that was a kind of a blow, if you will, to Sony. They're not cutting prices, which was known basically because every year they make their fiscal forecast. If you're sophisticated enough and follow video game industry enough, and this past fiscal year forecast in March 2017, Sony came out with their fiscal year. Sony's fiscal years are like from March to March. So basically, Sony said from March of 2017 to March of 2018, they forecasted to sell like slightly less PS4 than they had sold from March 2016 to March 2017. So what does that tell you? It instantly tells you they're not planning to do a price cut. Probably, almost surely. Because how are you going to forecast to sell slightly less, about the same, but slightly less PS4? Well, there's one way to easily do that and keep the price the same, So like I said, if you knew that going in, you knew that a PS4 price cut was very unlikely. Like I said, I do think they would have cut the Pro price to $349 if Microsoft had forced their hand on it. Well, Microsoft didn't, so they were more than happy to leave it. So yeah, that's what I got on E3 2017. A little underwhelming. Microsoft wins. Pretty terrible show from Sony. And I didn't even really pay attention to Nintendo.